Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. A rare interview with the chair of Tesla, Robyn Denholm, 1 week out from shareholders' vote on Elon Musk's pay. She's behind her CEO and his billions in compensation.
Put yourself in his shoes. You've worked really hard, incredibly hard over 6 years to lead the company through transformative growth.
And just like that, New York City's years in the making congestion pricing plan hits the brakes. New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer is celebrating.
I'm very focused on Jersey and making sure our families, have easy commutes, but also can save a few bucks. And this is more than a few bucks. They're going to get to save thousands of dollars a year because of this indefinite pause.
All that today. Plus, Nvidia hits the $3 trillion mark, and Boeing's departing CEO called before Congress on his way out.
What a long, tortuous fall, the greatest American manufacturer.
It's Thursday, June 6th, 2024. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernen and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew, welcome back in studio.
Thank you. It's nice to see you. Not that I didn't see you yesterday.
No, but it's good to see you in person.
In person.
Yeah, good to have you here.
Doing some good work down there. Although you
in D.C. in the swamp. By the way, a little swampy because the weather was very
swampy
humid.
here. Swampy in my backyard.
Yeah,
swampy in my backyard. I went out and was amazed. It must have been raining hard last night.
Yeah. You can feel there's heat.
Anybody else just love getting up when it's raining really hard and dark and everything?
I actually do.
You do?
I like being up
3:30, pouring rain, dark and cold, and you like getting up.
It's dark and hot. These markets just keep kind of melting up. You can continue to see momentum moving up and up. In fact, yesterday, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both closed at record highs. They were driven by gains in Nvidia. It's Nvidia's market these days. Nvidia actually closed higher by 5% yesterday. It's up more than 12% for the week so far. The shares are up more than 20% since the company's blockbuster earnings report just last month. You continue to see this week to date, as we mentioned, up more than 12%. Nvidia's market cap yesterday overtook Apple's. It topped $3 trillion. And get this, it only took Nvidia about 3 months to make the leap from $2 trillion to $3 trillion. That is phenomenal. It's kind of mind-boggling how they've done this. But it has been Nvidia's market.
So it's possible that Nvidia really does grow into that value. I mean, it's kind of there already. But it does, but nobody else makes any money in AI. Is that possible for a while?
I think for a while it's possible.
And then that there's a lag, and then like the internet. Yeah, like the internet.
I mean, what you probably will see is
amazing.
Microsoft and Amazon making a lot of money on their cloud, on the cloud computing.
And they need the
that
chips.
they need to do this.
Still, $3 trillion. That fast. It's
Unbelievable.
I mean, that's more than GameStop, I think, isn't it? Is it?
In New York, Governor Kathy Hochul has now shelved the plan to charge congestion pricing for drivers entering Manhattan south of 60th Street. She said the program has been paused indefinitely because implementing the plan risks too many unintended consequences. She cited inflation and lingering effects of the pandemic on working families and the New York City economy. Of course, this has already cost an extraordinary amount of money. If you go, on the streets, you'll see they've already installed some of the cameras and systems in those places. I don't know if you've seen it all. There's an extraordinary sort of infrastructure cost that's already been in place. I don't know. She says indefinitely. I don't know if this really is forever. I don't know if this comes back. This was something that Mayor Bloomberg wanted to do for a very, very long time. Dan Doctoroff, who we talked about, has wanted to do it. They did it successfully in London. Of course, the question is, this is a timing issue? Meaning maybe the time is not brilliant right now?
It's a timing issue right now
because... Or is it a never issue?
There's an election looming, and congressional Democrats are facing a ton of pressure over this, because if you ask people in Staten Island in particular, they're furious about this. If you ask people in Queens and other boroughs, they're furious about this.
I'm going to kill something, tax it, and it's never a good idea.
The talk about tax it, the conundrum, which people, I'm not sure, have been fully appreciated, but it is in the politics of this, is if they don't do this, the only way they're going to ever make up the MTA budget and everything else in this city is to tax business. And so you talk about trying to tax something that's more popular or less popular. What's going to ultimately happen
That sounds more popular to me.
It is more popular because people say, "Oh, just go tax the businesses," but then
they're
going to go. So,
or they could actually start charging people to ride the subways and the buses. Have you seen the amount of people and the amount of money that they're losing because people aren't paying fares, especially on the buses, but on the subway system too? Something like 20% declines in revenue because people are not paying to go on. Buses that were temporarily free during the pandemic, now you have people who think they should be free all the time and just refuse to pay. I mean, this is a situation where they can't get their own arms around what's happening in the subway system and the buses where people just refuse to pay.
I take the subway daily, so I was
looking at the numbers, the revenue numbers, how much it's dropped because people are refusing to pay. The fare jumpers, they paid to put more police down and tried to police these things, but the revenue that has dropped because people are refusing to pay the fares is unbelievable. That's the problem.
You're not a fare jumper.
I'm not a fare jumper. You believe that 20? They're saying 20. I didn't see this. That's amazing if true. 20% of the people are jumping over the.
Well, 20. The revenue's down by more than 20%.
Oh, the revenue may be down by more than 20%. But that's part of it is just getting people back on the subway. And then the question is,
hang on, I'll show you the numbers.
Pricing?
Do you ride it to like meetings later in the day or to the Times?
All the time. It's easy.
Because
the New York Times is just over here, so that's not. But
so then when you have meetings or things?
I went from uptown to downtown to uptown yesterday.
I mean, I talked to other people who were in the
I came back from DC.
Is that the $100 Uber ride that you just? I mean, that might have cured you for $3 Uber for good. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, here it is. Transit ridership is merely 2/3 of its previous highs before the pandemic. Fares are down 26% from the first few months of 2020. There's estimates that the transit system lost $200 to $300 million from fare evasion before the pandemic, but by 2023, that number grew to $690 million in lost revenue, according to the Citizens Budget Commission report. Right. So almost $700 million in lost fares from people refusing to pay.
There's a longer conversation about this, and I'm sure our viewers may not want to go into it, but it's very expensive to police $3 fares, and it's not clear that it's actually an economically viable thing to do.
Which is why they're now looking at new ways to try and prevent people with new things that you can't jump over, new ways to try and.
And they do. I mean, if you Times Square and other places, they have it. It's just you have to build it out everywhere, and that's a big, massive infrastructure cost. Where do you get the money for that? Well, all this was supposed to come from congestion pricing.
And Boeing's outgoing CEO Dave Calhoun set to face lawmakers later this month. He'll testify before a Senate subcommittee on June 18th. Calhoun is going to face questions about whistleblower safety allegations and quality controls of Boeing aircraft. In a statement, Boeing saying in part that it welcomes the opportunity to go before the panel and share the steps the company has taken to improve safety and quality. People pile on, and I don't know what to make of it, but the latest was these two former employees of Boeing. And, in the articles, they point out, even though two other whistleblowers died earlier this year within months, these two are more determined than ever to tell what they allege are dangerous practices at Boeing and calling the safety a ticking time bomb. But what a weird story. Two of them died, weirdly, and then these two, they even reference it in the pieces that they're still coming forward, even though is that implying there's some danger to their safety if they report?
It has been weird if you've looked at the things before. I mean, it's...
What a long, tortuous fall the greatest American manufacturer has had.
Still is a great American manufacturer.
Still is our greatest, but it's unfortunate and hard to watch.
Yeah.
By the way, one comment on Boeing I was thinking about, because I interviewed Lena Khan and Cantor. When you think about antitrust in America, one of the things we did in this country was we consolidated.
We let Boeing
all around Boeing because we wanted to have a national champion. And in truth, while that might have been a short-term good thing, it has turned out to be a long-term bad thing. And had we had competition potentially in this country, you might not be in this situation because the only competitor they have is Airbus.
And how do you just have more than a duopoly in making those? I guess China and you fly on the Russian airliner.
Yeah,
I'm not.
It's like Boeing any day of the week. But I mean, it started with Europe consolidating around Airbus, and it's
it did, and then we did too. But I wonder whether if we had had one or two other players in the U.S., whether you would have had a better outcome.
We kind of, we have Embraer down in South America, Canada. There's some nice jets they make up in but they don't make the big.
Right.
the big hub and spoke type.
Next on Squawk Pod, what about that $1 billion? More on the Big Apple's congestion pricing pause. While some New Jerseyans are celebrating, some New Yorkers are wondering, how do we replace that income? New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer says it is not the Garden State's problem.
This is a management problem and has been for years. It's actually running things better. You got to run the railroad better. And at the end of the day, you don't just turn around and whack hardworking people and hope that they're going to make up the difference.
This is Squawk Pod with Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Up and Becky, Q.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul putting the rollout of congestion pricing on hold indefinitely, saying that it could hurt the city's post-pandemic recovery. The new tolls were scheduled to go into effect later this month. New Jersey residents have a good reason to celebrate for now, and joining us is one of those celebrating. That would be New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer. And Congressman, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So should we look at this as a temporary victory in terms of what you were hoping for? Governor Hochul says not now, but as Andrew points out, the infrastructure is already put in place. The cameras are set up. I'm hearing that a lot of this was because of political pressures. You're facing congressional candidates who have to run in November, and they were getting massive pushback from places like Staten Island, places like Queens and other New York area where their residents were going to have to pay for this. You think after the election this comes back?
I don't, not in the short run. I think, this is Becky, as you know, a huge win for Jersey and New York families, right? In terms of their pocketbooks and what people are going to have to pay, $15 a day extra, $4,000 a year, which was just outrageous. And of course, it was going to lead to more traffic and more pollution in northern New Jersey and the outer boroughs. And I think a lot of elected officials heard what I've been hearing for years. Absolutely not. People just can't afford this, and we shouldn't move forward. And I think finally, and I want to thank Governor Hochul for doing the right thing here, I think realizing that this makes no sense, especially now when people can't afford to pay more, and it was going to cause more problems. So I look at this as a huge win. We fought till the very end. As you know, we've been fighting for 5 years. We fought to the very end, just 25 days to spare, through the kitchen sink at New York and then some. But listen, we got it done, and we're going to save people thousands of dollars a year.
Did you talk to Governor Hochul about this? Because this was really kind of a Hail Mary last-minute solution to this.
I mean, not in the last day, but I have and expressed my deep concern through the years, as you know, and what it would cost. Listen, I think now the key is to making sure we get back to a cooperative relationship to make sure New York can thrive and bring people back, and their small businesses are okay. And of course, I'm very focused on Jersey and making sure our families, have easy commutes, but also can save a few bucks. And this is more than a few bucks. They're going to get to save thousands of dollars a year because of this indefinite pause. And I think the word indefinite is key here that they used.
Hey, Congressman, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I get why this is a win for you in many ways. But clearly, there is now going to be a big, call it $1 billion hole in the budget in New York. And so there's going to be a question about how that's ultimately going to get paid for. And I know you're saying that you don't want that on the back of your taxpayers. The argument now is that's going to end up on the back of New York businesses, likely. And then there's a question about whether they want to stay in this city. Given that we all dearly care about this entire ecosystem and that we have built on purpose lots of infrastructure around New York City to incorporate folks in New Jersey, Westchester, Long Island, there's a whole system built around this. What would you recommend to the extent, and I know it's not your responsibility, but it is everybody's responsibility to some degree, what would you recommend to fill that hole?
Well, listen, I believe it's all of our responsibility. It's why I believe in the Port Authority and the New York-New Jersey relationship. And then we fought very hard. We got $6 billion through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which I helped write and pass from New York's mass transit system. I'd say they're going to have to clean up the MTA. This is a huge issue I've been talking about for years. They lost $700 million to fare skippers last year alone. People just didn't pay. They got to fix that, right? And listen, there's $600 million the Buffalo Bills are going to get for a new stadium. The owners there. Don't give it to build a new stadium. Move that money to invest in mass transit in the city. Right. So there's a lot of things that they spend money on. There's mismanagement that they can fix and clean things up. And we're going to continue. They get $2 billion every year additional, Andrew, for mass transit in New York from the federal government.
Congressman, I get that, but I don't think that in truth that's the fairest answer, because as we were discussing earlier, it's very hard to police this stuff in terms of fare skippers, for example. On a $3 Metro card, the amount of money it costs to actually have cops physically standing there everywhere, you will never make the economics of that work, unfortunately. You never will. Even some of the capital costs to actually implement some of these new things that you hopefully can't jump over.
Although I will say,
it's just very hard.
The number of fare skippers has skyrocketed. I mean, you're talking 45% of local bus riders not paying their fees to board at the last 3 months of last year. That's up from 21% in the last quarter of 2019.
I'm not saying we shouldn't fix it. I'm just saying that there's a much larger sort of piece of this puzzle than just.
You just can't allow. I'm with Becky. You can't allow lawlessness and people not to pay to ride, and that number has surged because they're not running it well. And we've got great law enforcement in New York, and they've done a great job over the years. We have to let them do their jobs, and I just disagree with that premise. Also, you have to watch the dollars that are spent. They blew an extra $1 billion on a 2nd Avenue subway stop because the oversight wasn't proper. They built it way too big. There's place and instance after instance where they're spending far too much money and not watching the nickels that people have to pay every day. And I think we got to hold them accountable. I hear what you're saying. Listen, it's
Congressman, do you support the unions, the construction unions that are responsible for the price tag being oftentimes 6 and 10 times the price it should be in almost every other city in America?
I certainly don't blame the hardworking men and women of labor if you're asking for better management. I mean, this is about a management issue, and they don't manage it well, and they've got to do a much better job.
And who do you think is managing those things? When the cost overruns happen, how do you think that happens? I mean, that's why I say, Congressman, this is a very complicated topic. And so I can see you're very happy today, but I'm saying to actually solve this really is so much harder than you're laying out.
I'm not saying any of this is easy, but the bottom line is they've had their problems have increased over the years, and you should look at the management. I mean, that's like in any organization. You don't just throw up your hands and say, oh, well, it's too big of a problem to take on. I mean, Andrew, if you went in there, I guarantee you in a week, you'd find 10 things that you could fix. So the bottom line is I think things need to be fixed. But more importantly, I think today we should focus on the fact that the answer is not just taxing people more, and especially hardworking families like nurses and electricians and firefighters and cops and teachers. That's not the answer, to stick it to people just so they get more money to blow into a bottomless pit. You got to fix the problem and spend money responsibly. And I think that's one of the critical lessons today is
especially
you can't
taxing
just
people who aren't using the system. Yeah, taxing people who aren't using the system.
Hey, Josh, you think it's possible to reform the labor management practices of public unions?
Do I think it's possible to reform the practices? I think
you can.
You know how I feel about this. You should look at everything.
Tell me.
Right? No, I just believe in responsibility, and you should look at everything. But the bottom line is I believe fundamentally, if you look at the problem, this is a management problem and has been for years. It's actually running things better. You got to run the railroad better. And at the end of the day, you don't just turn around and whack hardworking people and hope that they're going to make up the difference because you have no way to fix it. That's certainly not the answer. $15 a day congestion tax wasn't the answer. And I think that everyone heard enough from people saying, you can't do this to people. You got to make life more affordable, not more expensive right now.
I mean, I will say, I'm somebody who would be potentially impacted, but I was not going to pay this tax. CNBC was going to pay it for me. I can push it back to the businesses. There are a lot of people who can't do that. The biggest short-sighted thing I think of this is you're trying to lure workers back to Midtown Manhattan because you want them here in the buildings, you want them paying for lunches, you want them going for drinks afterwards, you want them having dinner here, all of that revenue that would feed into the city. And I just think if you tax that, they are far more likely now to just work from home because they can. Post-pandemic, we've shown them that that's possible. I think that it's a complicated problem. I think everybody brings good points up. Andrew's point about the police is a fair one. They put overtime pay for police in the subway skyrocketed from $4 million in 2022 to $155 million last year. So it is difficult to do this, but there is a breakdown in society where 45% of the bus riders aren't paying and 13% of the subway riders
I think Congressman, the one other piece of this that I think is being missed in the puzzle is the folks who are driving into New York City are already part of the, I don't know if it's the 1% or the top 5%, because the truth is there is already a tax on the system. Parking in this city will cost you $50, $60 a day, if not more. Crossing the George Washington Bridge is costing you $15. It is a $75 project to begin with.
And there is a breaking point.
And maybe there's a breaking point, but we're talking about $10 or $15 more. But the idea that somehow you are hurting The folks who can afford paying $75 may very well be able to afford paying $95, right?
Andrew, you got it.
That's different than somebody who go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I disagree with you there. I mean, come to Jersey, you're talking about nurses who have no options. There's zero options for them for mass transit in a lot of places where I live in northern New Jersey. You go to Sussex County, which I represent. They're not the 1%. They're not living high on the hog. Right? But they have no other choice. They have no mass transit. It's not like New York. They have no mass transit options. Right. And, we can't add more trains because, that's why I was excited to get money for the new Gateway train tunnel so we can have more capacity. But you've got limited capacity options. You have limited options, people, or no options. There's no bus service since the pandemic in a lot of places, or very limited bus service. So they have to drive. And you know what? As Becky said, a lot of these people work incredibly hard. They're trying to make ends meet, whacking them with another $15 a year. That's $15 a day. That's $4,000 a year after taxes, right? So you're talking about $7,000 before taxes. That's a lot of money for somebody who's working incredibly hard to make ends meet. And that's who we're fighting for here. And listen, I'm going to keep fighting for people, whether it's the next issue, for hardworking folks. And that's what we did here. And I think it was a very big win for them. And it's going to be a good win for New York, not just for New Jersey, right? You don't mess with Jersey on these things, but also you don't mess with small business owners anywhere who are trying to make ends meet too, or anybody else trying to get by. And I think that's the lesson here.
Congressman Gottheimer, thank you. Obviously, we all feel it's a very interesting problem, and we're all trying to solve it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Cheese will be next.
Coming up, Tesla's chairman of the board. Andrew sits down with the executive closest to Elon Musk, but she runs the board from Australia, just a week away from shareholders' vote on Musk's gargantuan pay package at the car maker, $56 billion.
When you put that package together in 2018, did you think he was going to hit those milestones?
I have tremendous faith in his abilities. I thought they were extraordinarily ambitious.
That big interview is coming up on Squawk Pod right after this. Welcome back to Squawk Pod. And we're bringing you a newsmaking and rare interview with Robyn Denholm, the board chair at Tesla. She has a pretty complicated job, overseeing the entrepreneur, Tesla founder, and one of the world's richest humans, Elon Musk. This conversation with Denholm and our Andrew Ross Sorkin happened in New York City, live on our TV broadcast this morning.
The Tesla shareholder meeting is 1 week from today. Mark your calendar. At stake is the big vote on Elon Musk's pay package and to move the company's legal home from Delaware to Texas. Joining me right now in an exclusive interview is Tesla board chair Robyn Denholm, and we are thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And you have been working mightily hard over the past couple of weeks, talking to shareholders from around the country, big institutions and others. And there's an opportunity to talk to retailers, retail shareholders about what is going on at Tesla and about this pay package. We've been debating this pay package virtually every day now for weeks, if not months. I've been very outspoken. I think a lot of people know my own views about it. But I want to understand your views about it, and not just your views as the lead of the board, but also personally about how you think about what is going on right now.
Yeah, so I think for me, getting out and talking to shareholders is really important. And today is a great opportunity to actually speak directly to retail shareholders who form quite a big part of the ownership structure of the company. And so for me, the ratification of the pay package is really about fairness. Fairness to our CEO. If you look at what's happened at the company over the last 6 years, tremendous value creation. And he's led that. Right. Obviously, the Tesla team has been instrumental in it. But if you sit back, shareholders have benefited tremendously. Over $730 billion of value creation. Employees have benefited tremendously. They're all shareholders in the company, so their stock has risen. Customers have benefited by the tremendous innovation. And the only person who hasn't been paid is actually the leader of the company, Elon.
So, you know my view. I believe a contract's a contract. But there are others who say, and by the way, the court has suggested that this is just too much money. What do you say to that?
Well, it's not about the dollars. It's actually about someone who took a huge risk from a pay perspective. No compensation would have been awarded had he not hit the milestones. And so for me, that that risk reward is very important in corporate America. I think it's very important from reaching for the stars, if you like, or Mars in this case. But to me, it's about really setting things up, and Elon embodies that. Right. And so big, ambitious goals are things that drive innovation. And I think the options underneath this pay package are very well earned.
Let me ask you this. If the pay package is not approved by shareholders, what do you think would happen?
Yeah, well, obviously that's something the board has spent quite a bit of time deliberating. And when we were assessing all the different options after the January judgment came out, this is the best option. Ratifying the plan is the best option. Clearly, if it doesn't pass, then there are other alternatives, but none of them are as good from a shareholder perspective as actually ratifying the plan. People have asked me, well, why didn't you renegotiate? Well, actually, from a legal perspective, ratification is really taking the same plan and putting it back in front of shareholders with all the requisite disclosure that the judge asked for.
There are some lawyers who have suggested, even if it is approved by shareholders again, that a court could strike it down and not accept this new ratification, if you will. Well,
that is possible, but quite frankly, if you sit back, that's actually quite detrimental from a shareholder primacy perspective, which at the end of the day, that's another reason why we're fighting so hard to get this ratified. Shareholder votes have been pretty sacrosanct from a Delaware law perspective, from a corporate America perspective, from a legal system. And over 73% of the unaffiliated shareholders voted for this plan in 2018.
So one of the things that's very interesting about what's happening now is to ratify, from a technical perspective, it's ratifying the prior plan as opposed to creating a new plan.
That's exactly.
And one of the things that's, I think, misunderstood, and maybe you can help explain this, is it would actually cost a lot more from shareholders if, in fact, this was a new contract prospectively, in that you wrote down the cost of some of this back in 2018, the tune of about $2.7 billion, I think.
2.3.
2.3.
Yes.
But it would cost today, I think, closer to $25 billion.
That's exactly right. So
explain that.
So the actual return for shareholders, $2.3 billion stock-based comp charge that was taken for the 2018 plan is already happened. The share count in the options is already in the diluted share count. That's already happened. If that plan is overturned and we have to put in a new plan, for example, if it was exactly the same type of plan as the other, it would cost $25 billion worth of stock-based comp.
What do you make of the argument that Elon Musk already has a huge stake in this company, that he's already incentivized, that he's already motivated, that he's not going to walk away from this company if he didn't get this package?
I think I'd turn that around. What I would say is put yourself in his shoes. You've worked really hard, incredibly hard over 6 years to lead the company through transformative growth. Nobody thought that these goals were possible in 2018. I remember talking to shareholders and what they would say to me is, Robyn, what are you going to do? What's the board going to do when he doesn't hit the goals and he's demotivated? So for me, after all of that effort, to then have somebody overturn that package or the deal that was struck, how would you feel?
Here's a personal question. When you put that package together in 2018, did you think he was going to hit those milestones?
I have tremendous faith in his abilities. I thought they were extraordinarily ambitious. And from my perspective as well, talking to shareholders, the shareholder base was saying to us, if they hit if he hits these goals, he's worth every cent of the options underlying the plan.
To the extent, if this for some reason is not approved, or if a court were to try to prevent this from being approved, what would the next steps be? Is it possible that Elon Musk, by the way, could ultimately sue Tesla?
Well, the good part about the legal system in the US is anybody can sue anybody. But by the same token, that's not something that he has talked to the board about or anything like that. It is possible. Is it probable? I don't know. But from an option perspective, in terms of different alternatives, as I said, putting in a new compact package is an alternative. But none of those alternatives are actually as good as ratifying the plan for shareholders. Because as we talked about before, there'd be an increased cost, there'd be demotivation. At the end of the day, we have a human at the end of this.
So when you read the ISS recommendation or the Glass-Lewis recommendation, what do you think? They're recommending against.
Yeah, no, I know. I have read them, and what I would say is the ISS report, in actually the substance, they got a lot of it right. What they got wrong was what ratification is, because their headline was, why is the board putting forward an all or nothing? Well, the reality is, under ratification, it has to be exactly the same plan. And we use the law in Delaware that allows for ratification to actually put it back in front of shareholders to hopefully reduce any uncertainty, get this thing passed, and actually then put this chapter behind us.
Right.
Now, there's no question things will be challenged. We're not naive as a board. But from a legal perspective, from a motivation perspective, for a shareholder perspective, this is the right path forward.
The Wall Street Journal had an interesting piece yesterday. They were also recommending against, but one of the things they said was that a lot of the shareholder base may be new. They might not have been the same shareholders who were there in 2018. So they may see this as a gift, an opportunity, effectively. In my mind, I think of, there's like a wallet on the ground with money in it, and someone gets to pick it up all of a sudden. When you talk to shareholders, how much of it is the Ron Barons, who came out very vocally on our program just yesterday, talking about the way he felt in 2018 and the way he feels now? Is that a different kind of shareholder than somebody who may be newer?
Yeah, I think, firstly, engagement with shareholders has been great. Even the challenging ones, the ones who actually push back, that's part of our role, to actually work with shareholders. What I would say is, if someone bought into the company subsequent to the 18 plan being put in place, they knew the plan was there. The disclosure around the plan, the milestones that needed to be hit, you would have to have been sitting under a rock not to know that this plan existed. So my view is anyone buying into the company, buying shares in the company, knew that this plan existed and what the milestones were for Elon, and actually what the underlying options were, very, very clearly.
One of the questions I hear from shareholders and critics is that there is the ecosystem that is Elon Musk, and that the board of Tesla has effectively allowed Elon to pursue too many other paths. And he talks about AI being one of the great sort of futures of Tesla, and of course he's also creating something called XAI, which is going to be its own business. How do you think about the various component parts of all of the things that he's working on, and how much, not just time, but mind share you want him devoting to your shareholders?
Yes. I think that is a question I get all the time. So from my perspective, the world is better for the ecosystem of Elon. Having said that, I'm here working for the shareholders of Tesla. I don't work for the shareholders of any of the other companies. And what we do as a board is we make sure that those things that are in and around the company from Elon's other companies are actually fair for Tesla shareholders, that Tesla benefits for anything that happens in and around any of his other companies. The rigor that we put around related party transactions is very, very steep in terms of how we've educated the Tesla leaders in terms of even notifying the legal and finance team. The compliance aspects of what we do from an audit committee perspective is very, very high.
Do you feel like you can push back on him personally? I mean, do you ever say, no, Elon, you cannot do that, or I don't want you doing that, or I'm unhappy about this?
Absolutely. And the board does that all the time. I do that all the time. I'm not going to do it in public. I mean, to me, that is the antithesis of good governance. What good governance is making sure that we're getting the best outcomes for our shareholders, but we're doing it in a respectful way. I mean, Elon's an amazing asset for the company and the future of the company.
Well, people have asked about the independence of the board relative to Elon, and given how big a presence he is and how important he is to the company, just how much leverage, if you will, he has versus the board.
No, well, the reality is that backward and forward between the board and a CEO is part of being a board. But part of understanding how to do that well with anybody, let alone someone as important as Elon, is to understand his motivations, to work with him on different things, to challenge, but also to lean into different areas of the business.
He's talked, and I think it's really in the context of AI, and I think it's important to contextualize this, of wanting to have 25% voting control of the company, or at least he threw out that idea at one point, because of the future of AI and what he thinks are the dangers of AI. If this package is ratified, I believe he gets closer to 20%, and he's sort of made these references on the call to, if there's buybacks and things, maybe he can get closer to 25. Has he ever come to you and said, I need to have voting control?
No. So what that tweet was about, and what that conversation, which he's tried to clarify, is actually around the governance of AI.
Right.
AI is an incredibly important technology for Tesla, but also for the world. And so, so for me, it's about, and who better in the world than Elon to actually understand the pitfalls as well as the opportunities that AI creates. And I think the other thing is AI is 2 letters that we use all the time, but it's actually a whole broad range of different technologies. I call it a horizontal set of technologies. It applies to healthcare. Tesla's not going to go into healthcare anytime soon. It applies to other parts of the economy.
We were really in the middle of a question about moving to Texas.
Yes.
And there's a question mark, I think, among investors about A, the decision to why you want to do that, and B, how that affects this very case.
So firstly, on the case, it doesn't affect the case at all. We've been very clear. This case, the compensation case, the Tornado case, actually is being tried in Delaware, and it will continue in Delaware because it's actually not finalised yet. So, but in terms of the move to Texas, we obviously moved our headquarters, our business headquarters to Texas in 2021. Right. The epicenter of Tesla today is Texas from a business perspective. The board has looked at a move to the legal, to marry the legal and the business headquarters. Right. And we formed a special committee and went through a gold standard process in terms of governance in order to decide where we should be located in terms of other states in the US. But for Tesla, Texas is the future. We're not running away from Delaware from a legal perspective, but the legal system and what is happening in Delaware from a legal certainty point of view, with a lot of cases being overturned and judgments actually not keeping the shareholder primacy front and centre, is actually concerning to us as a board.
Different question about incentives longer term.
Yes.
For Elon, which is, he's obviously enormously wealthy. Mm-hmm. How are you going to incentivize him in the future? I know we're really only 6 years into what is a 10-year plan, and there's still 5 years of vesting that have to take place, and I'm not sure shareholders always appreciate that piece either.
Yeah. So when we constructed the 2018 plan with outside help and also understanding the motivations. Obviously, big audacious goals are what drive Elon in terms of motivation, but we wanted to put this in for the long term. So it is a 10-year plan. Even after he exercises the shares, he must hold them for another 5 years. And that hasn't even started yet. So he has not exercised one share under this program. So we have a lot of runway under this existing plan, which is why we want it ratified.
Right. I wanted to go back just to the ecosystem question for 1 second, if you'd indulge me, which was a report by CNBC actually earlier this week about Nvidia chips. And I thought maybe you could help us with this.
Yes.
Because the report suggested effectively that, and this goes to sort of the related party transactions piece, that given the Elon ecosystem, that Elon was moving chips that were originally scheduled to go to Tesla to go to his other business, XAI, and how a Tesla shareholder is supposed to think about that, if in fact it's true.
Yeah, so it's not true. So from a Tesla perspective, you saw on the Q1 earnings call that we actually lowered our capex guide for the fiscal year of 24. So we have built out significant compute with GPU capability already. We have a second phase. We're actually building a new data center in Texas. As we speak. It won't come online until August. We had originally a purchase order for the whole year. We pushed some of that out into next year. So what happened to those chips on the Nvidia side? They were not Tesla's chips. They were Nvidia's chips. We moved out our purchase order to later in the year to line up with the data center build.
We were talking earlier also about pushing back, meaning what that relationship's like.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's a good example of something where Elon wanted to do something and you said no. And one of the reasons I raised the question is shareholders have said to me, they said, look, there's a great example. The SEC put in place this idea that Elon's tweets were supposed to be monitored, and then they appeared to not be monitored. And so people want to understand what the dynamic really is like.
No, there's plenty of areas from a board perspective that we have a constructive dialogue, a great debate, and sometimes things move the way the board had originally come out with the position, and sometimes they move back towards Elon. It is a positive, constructive dialogue.
Sounds like there was a debate over buybacks at one time.
Oh, there was a very significant debate over buyback.
And where do you think that stands right now?
Well, we didn't have a buyback at that point in time. We always evaluate it, but from the board's perspective, we do the right thing from a shareholder, for all shareholders. Right. And so having that debate is part of being an effective board.
Let me ask you another question, which is, Elon's very public about debating folks on X and the like.
Yes.
And has increasingly made comments that are considered political. There's a big debate going on in this country, obviously around our politics, but also around EVs. And in some cases, there's a view that EVs, are more popular in blue states rather than red states, and sort of how the politics are emerging. What do you tell him about speaking publicly about politics?
Yeah, so everyone is entitled to their own view. Obviously, when you hold great sway and you've got a huge following, you do need to be careful with what you're talking about. But by the same token, it's the interpretation as opposed to his views. He's entitled to his views. Everybody is. I don't happen to put mine on Twitter, but I have views myself. But so from our perspective, we monitor.
Do you monitor his tweets?
Absolutely. So.
How does that work?
It's very interesting, actually, the range and breadth of tweeting that happens. But definitely, if things that he talks about that are not associated with Tesla, but are associated with politics or anything else, and we, as a board, aren't comfortable with the point of view, or they've been misinterpreted or whatever, we'll lean into that conversation. Again, not in public, because quite frankly, that's not helpful to anybody. But we will have conversation. I'll pick up the phone. The rest of the board will as well. That is part of our role.
Final question: can Tesla exist without Elon Musk?
It can exist, but from my perspective, the right thing for Tesla at this time is for Elon to continue to be at the helm. And this ratification of the comp plan is exactly about that.
Robyn Denholm, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, and thank you for your patience with the news and everything else. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Please tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. And to get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears, follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.